This is the general election element 2 about the Electoral College. And for those of you that don't know what the Electoral College is, well, I've got some disheartening news to break to you. Your vote does not elect the president. It doesn't. The general election on Election Tuesday is a big deal with a lot of pomp and circumstance, and whoever wins that night pretty much has assured themselves that they've won the election, but it's not official yet. Your vote does not elect the president. So who does? The Electoral College does. They're the ones that cast the official votes for President of the United States. Now, who is the Electoral College? Well, these are usually people who are being rewarded for their party loyalty by being given this position. It's important to note that they cannot be members of the active government. These are people who have just done a good job for the political party and now are being rewarded by having that party select them to be electors from the state. The Democrats have their own set of electors, and the Republicans have their own set of electors as well, and just sitting and waiting until they see who wins the popular vote in the general election in November. But why is the Electoral College even necessary? Well, the founders wanted the president to be selected by the nation's elite, not directly elected by the people. You have to remember, back then, education levels were not very high, and so they didn't feel a group of people that did not study government and politics or study the candidates should be allowed to vote for who the president was going to be. So how does the Electoral College work in a state? Well, over a month after the general election, the Electoral College from that state will meet in the state capitol. This takes place on the Monday after the second Wednesday in December. They'll take the oath to swear themselves in as members of the Electoral College. Each elector will publicly declare who they're going to vote for, again, usually according to the will of the popular vote of the state. And then they'll make it official. The electors from all 50 states will write down their public declaration of who they decided they were going to cast their Electoral College ballot or vote for. And once that's done, the Electoral College from every state will mail their ballots to the Vice President of the United States. Why the Vice President? Because the Vice President is also constitutionally the presiding officer of the U.S. Senate. Now, once Congress comes back in January, the U.S. Senate, or Congress, I should say, will count these ballots up, and then the Vice President of the United States, again, the presiding officer of the U.S. Senate, will publicly announce who has officially won the presidential election for the upcoming year. Now, again, the process goes from general election in November to Electoral College in December, to the U.S. Congress counting those ballots from all 50 states and announcing the official winner in early January. And as you know then, the president is sworn in on January 20th. Now, the next question is, how many Electoral College votes does a state actually get? Well, that number depends on the number of U.S. representatives and senators that you have. In other words, the total number of members you have in Congress. If you take a look here at the state of California, on this map, they have 55 Electoral College votes. That means they have 55 total members of Congress, 2 senators and 53 House reps. The state of Illinois has 20 Electoral College votes. That means they have 20 total members of Congress, 2 senators and 18 members of the U.S. House of Reps. And, of course, Michigan, on this map, has 16, which means that they have 16 total members of Congress, 2 senators, and 14 U.S. House representatives. That's basically how Electoral College votes are figured out. The total number of people you have in Congress, that's how many Electoral College votes your state gets. But remember, if you look at Electoral College maps from the past, that can actually change quite a bit. As people leave states and move into other states, as long as there are population shifts that are going on, you're going to find that with those increasing and decreasing populations, the number of representatives that there are in a state also increases and decreases. And if the number of representatives in a state increases and decreases, that also changes the total number of congressional members that that state has, therefore changing the total number of Electoral College votes that state has. So if you look at old maps, you're going to see different numbers of Electoral College votes for a given state changing throughout history. One other concept you have to be aware of with the Electoral College is the winner-take-all system. As you can see here on this map, the state of Michigan is predominantly red. This is from the 2012 presidential election. That means in most of the counties, Mitt Romney won the county. The Republicans won that particular county. But you'll also notice that in these blue areas down here in southeast Michigan, well, those are the highly populated areas. I mean, here's Detroit. Over in here is the Flint and Saginaw area. Those are the urban areas outside of Grand Rapids anyway. Those are the urban areas, and in urban areas, they tend to vote for the Democrats a lot more. So overall, more people in Michigan voted for Barack Obama, voted for the Democrats. Even though this map looks like it's a runaway Republican victory, the higher populations voting for the Democratic Party meant that the Democrats took the state, and therefore also meant that Barack Obama got all 16 of the Electoral College's votes from the state of Michigan. So in the Electoral College, it's winner take all. I might be running for president and lose to someone 51% to 49% in Michigan, let's say, and therefore that means that my opponent might get 9 Electoral College votes and I might get 7, right? Well, that's not the case. It doesn't matter how close the margin is. If you win the state, you get all of the Electoral College votes from that state. Now, not every state is obligated to use the winner-take-all system. You have to remember that in all sorts of methods of electing anybody, specifically in this case a president, the 10th Amendment allows states to do what they want. There's nothing written in the Constitution about what type of ballot you want to use or how you go about it. In Oregon, the last I knew, they still did everything by absentee ballot. They literally mailed their ballots in. I don't know if that has changed by now or not, but some places will use a lever system. Some places will use a computer system, a punch card system, a bubble sheet system. There's any number of ways, and it changes from county to county if you want to, and township to township for that matter. Frankly, there's any number of ways you can choose to go through the actual method of electing someone. And that also applies, in terms of the 10th Amendment, to the electors of a state. They have the right to not use the winner-take-all system if they choose not to. Right now, 48 out of the 50 states employ a winner-take-all system in which their electors are awarded to the presidential candidate who wins their state. But in Maine and Nebraska, it's a little bit different. In Maine and Nebraska, an elector is allocated for every congressional district won. Now, they don't have that many congressional districts. I mean, if you take a look at Nebraska here, they have 5 Electoral College votes, which means they have 2 senators and only 3 members of the House of Representatives, which means, of course, those people represent only 3 districts in Nebraska. Well, in Nebraska, for example, in 2008, Barack Obama won the congressional district near Omaha, but John McCain won the other 2 congressional districts and the overall state vote. So Nebraska's electoral vote ended up being split with 4 for John McCain and 1 for Barack Obama. That's why it's purple on this map. That's how they do it in Maine and Nebraska. Whoever wins the state as a whole wins the 2 electors that are represented by their 2 U.S. senators. But the other 3 congressional districts are divided up. If you win that congressional district, you get that elector's vote. 2 are going to go to the overall winner of the state, and 3 others are going to go to the winners of the congressional districts. How many Electoral College votes do you need to win? Well, take a look at this chart here, and you can see there's a dividing line right here, and it's because you need 270 votes, Electoral College votes, to win a presidential election. That's the line. But why is that the line? Well, it's because there are 538 Electoral College votes available. Now follow along closely and write this down. There are 100 senators in the United States, 2 per state, and there are also 435 members of the U.S. House of Representatives. That's a permanent number. It's never changed, and it's not going to change. No matter how big the population gets, that number, 435, will stay the same. There will always be 435 U.S. congressional districts. So you have your 100 senators and your 435 House reps to give you 535 members of Congress total. And then you also have to factor in, this is the third part, you have to factor in that the Electoral College also has 3 electors in Washington, D.C. because of the 23rd Amendment. So you have your 100 senators, your 435 House reps, and the 3 electors that the 23rd Amendment gives to Washington, D.C. That gives you a total of 538. Divide that by 2, and it gives you 269. But to win anything, you have to have a majority, so you have to have one more than 269. In other words, 270. One of the key components of any presidential election is the swing state or the battleground state. If you're from a state, like George Bush in 2004 was from Texas, he knew he was going to win it, so he didn't campaign a lot there. Barack Obama is from Illinois, so he didn't campaign a lot there. But if you look at states where the election is really, really close, those are called battleground states or swing states because they can swing the election in somebody's favor. If the race is really close, well, all you have to do is win 51 to 49, and you'll get all the Electoral College votes for that state. So it's well worth it for people to concentrate a lot of funds in battleground or swing states that could swing the vote in their favor. Now, what happens if no candidate obtains a majority in the Electoral College, if nobody gets to 270? Well, then the issue is thrown to the House of Representatives, which brings us to the election of 1824. In 1824, as you see on the chart here, Andrew Jackson was clearly ahead in the popular vote of John Quincy Adams, 152,901 to 114,023. And Andrew Jackson was clearly ahead in Electoral College votes, 99 to 84. But the other 2 candidates did well enough that Jackson could not obtain a majority. And because of that, the issue was thrown to the House of Representatives. The House of Representatives was led by the Speaker of the House, Henry Clay. Now, Andrew Jackson thought there was no way possible that he could get beat, but sure enough, the next day, the House of Representatives had decided to award the presidency to John Quincy Adams, who had clearly come in second. Now, Andrew Jackson got even more upset when he found out that the very next day after getting elected, John Quincy Adams made Henry Clay his Secretary of State. Now, why is that a big deal? Because Secretary of State is often a stepping stone job to the presidency. Former Secretary of States have a distinct advantage over other candidates because they have foreign policy experience. If this happened the way that people thought it may have happened, then basically Adams was saying to Henry Clay, once I'm done being president, you'll be in perfect position to have your turn. Jackson was very upset, and to this day, among people, it's often known as the corrupt bargain of 1824. And then, of course, is the election of 2000. When you initially look at the map of the election of 2000, it looks like a runaway victory for the Republican George Bush. I mean, look how many states are in red. But the race was a lot closer than it looks because in urban areas, they tend to vote more Democratic. And California went to Al Gore because of the vote in Los Angeles, San Diego, and San Francisco. Illinois went to Al Gore because of Chicago. Michigan went to Al Gore because of Detroit. Pennsylvania went to Gore because of Philadelphia. New York went to Al Gore because of New York. Massachusetts went to Al Gore because of Boston. But even still, going well into the night, we had no idea who was going to win the presidency. It was that close. Well, eventually, it all came down to the state of Florida. Whoever took Florida was going to win the election, and whoever took Dade County down by Miami was going to win Florida. This ended up being the closest race in election history as George Bush got 271 Electoral College votes to Al Gore's 266. And you know what the sad thing for Gore was? If he had just taken his own state, Tennessee, he'd have won the election. The problem was that George Bush didn't win the popular vote but still got the presidency. And that led to a recount for weeks after the election was over, people trying to take a look at ballots to see if people really meant to vote for the person that they had voted for. So I want you to ask yourself this before you come to the next class. How is it possible to win the presidency after losing the popular vote? Have an answer for me ready when you come in. That's it. Thanks for listening.